Where we live is very closely associated with how we live. The quality of our lives, our aspirations for a better life, our belief in ourselves, the very right we possess to claim our share in the restful sleep of the American dream. To study where we live, we must begin to grapple with the complexities of who we are, the identity formed by our families, our neighborhoods, our experiences, and those who come into and out of our lives. In other words, how do we define the we in where we live? Who are these people doing the living, and how have they come to be where they are? If there is a pecking order in the quality of housing, the homeless are undeniably at the lowest point, with no certain place to live, yet still living all the same. Kansas City's homeless population soared well beyond the number of beds and shelters available to accommodate them over the last 2 decades. Some of our homeless people are the victims of education, or a lack of it. Some are victims of economics, our nation's shift from industrialization to advanced technology. Some are the victims of their own past, and some the victims of their own fears. After all, who can fail who aspires to nothing? There are a considerable number of homeless people who are the victims of mental health problems. Without the availability of unlimited funds and housing, the mentally impaired are forced into a life of homelessness, leaving emergency shelters the only recourse to the streets. For the homeless, all of America truly is home. Any piece of this land of the free that they can pull up around them to find warmth, any fruits of the plains that might be accessible to feed themselves and their children. These outcasts of society claim the unmerciful streets of this city as their only address. How can we move them into a place with 4 walls and a roof, somewhere under our spacious skies that they can call home? In the heart of the city beats a furtive drum, underscored by the footfalls of those who wrote the city's first charter, accentuated by the melodic strains of legendary jazz, muffled by towering structures that still pulse the city's legal and fiscal health. The drummer is a people, a community with stories and lifestyles as varied as their number. Some are well educated, some even affluent, with a preference for the rhythm of the central city. They are there by choice. Others are captive by circumstance. Yet, contrary to opinion, all those who are caught in the core are not unruly, unkempt, and uneducated. Some are widows or widowers. Some are fighting serious illness. Some are victims of sudden misfortune, along with some who are the potential doctors, educators, visionaries, and leaders of our future society. Many of these world citizens in the urban core live in substandard housing. In fact, the core contains the city's highest concentration of public housing facilities, aka the projects. With names like T.B. Watkins Homes, Gwinnett Manor, and Wayne Minor Courts, one would never suspect that the actual dwellings were looked upon as examples of deplorable living conditions. The public housing program was conceived with all the noble, best intentions to house those who would otherwise be homeless. But over time, housing fell into disrepair and deteriorated structurally. It wasn't long before the human environment began to decay. Increasing crime, including drug abuse, assault, theft, and gang activity, led to eventual apathy, low self-esteem, hopelessness. Single-family homes and apartment units in the core have suffered the same decline. Those with the economic stability to do so ran from the area, building new communities, and Kansas City saw the birth of the suburbs. The term white flight came into our vocabulary and is universally understood to mean the exodus of stable income white people from the urban core into the suburbs. Whites in search of safer communities, nicer homes, and better schools for their children. However, as people of color climbed to economic levels rare prior to the Civil Rights Amendment, Fair Housing Act, and affirmative action, that flight crossed the color line and began to reflect haves and have-nots of every ethnic origin. Yet today, the core is still overwhelmingly populated by people of color with lesser financial resources. In the urban core, there are no trendy boutiques or discount outlets like the ones found in the suburbs. In fact, many areas have pitifully few choices for basic necessities like groceries, toiletries, and prescriptions, since most of the major chain stores have abandoned the area, and those remaining generally charge higher rates to offset higher retail insurance rates. While there are numerous programs and foundations working diligently to address the needs of the people in the core, there truly aren't enough funds to provide adequate housing maintained in good repair. Nor are there enough facilities available to accommodate those in need, even if the funds were available. But there are changes in the making. There is hope. So many of these families appear stuck in a cycle of poverty and defeatism, born of inadequate education and low self-esteem. We can educate people as to the programs and assistance available to improve their living conditions, and we can educate those responsible for the resources in the best ways to help these people. But it seems that the most important need remains. There must be some way to instill self-respect and dignity, the realization that one can rise above the legacy of poverty left in the city core. To learn the king's English, to live in and care for a home fit for a king, to feel every bit as worthy to enjoy the good life as the descendants of any kings and queens. There is no part of the American dream that isn't rooted in a plot of land with a home that you can call your own, a place to retreat from the cares of the world, some place to take pride in, raise a family, and be happy. The final place we will look in pursuit of where we live starts with a mortgage deed. For those who have the right economic resources, home ownership is easy. Simply pick out a plot of land in a location that's appealing, hire a contractor, and build what you'd like from the ground up. Or there are some who prefer the elegance and quality of older homes to the new and improved. These owners are buying older homes and renovating, a pattern that has led to speculation about an urban renaissance in the new millennium, the return of some of those who fled to the suburbs in decades past. Even in the urban core, there are many beautiful, well-maintained properties, pockets of homes, blocks, and whole neighborhoods that still bear the beauty of their time. But for many struggling up from assisted housing or apartment living, the process of securing the funds and approval to buy a home can be a real challenge. There are so many considerations. Just what are the keys to affordable home buying in the metropolitan area? Visit any other American metropolitan area such as ours, and it becomes clear that Kansas Cityans have much to be thankful for. The worst is comparatively not as bad, and the best is incredibly beautiful. But of course, that's all relative to the individual who calls that worst or best home each day. Yet while we might tend to categorize living conditions, we must be careful not to forget that at the bottom of the facts and figures, there are people. People who run the gamut of best to worst in all of the housing situations described. Where we live is not always indicative of how well we live. As Kansas City Mayor Emanuel Cleaver puts it, the most powerful sermon is the one lived, not the one preached. He went on to say that peace and happiness is the basic desire of every mentally sound human being, as well as the basis for real community. And the answer to achieving both is to get inside the unhappiness of others in order to know how to respect their peace and happiness. There is a story about a body walking along when suddenly the toe stubbed against a stone. The head looked down at the toe and said, "How dare you interrupt my progress? Why, you're just a lowly toe down on the ground to be walked upon. I will ignore you and you will not bother me." But the more the body walked along, the stronger the toe's pain became to the head, until finally, head said to toe, "All right, I can't stand this pain any longer. What do you want from me so that we can both be happy?" Then toe said to head, "Get hand to reach down here and touch the pain with heart until it goes away." We're all so interconnected in this tiny space that we live in. We have to realize that everyone wins when our dreams of peace and happiness are also sweet dreams of where we live.